Chapter 4, The Fishmonger, 2019, Scene 10, Jasira. There was no doubt that a kettle of tea had been brewed by the scent of cardamom that greeted Jasira upon entering the bright, airy room. Miriam's apartment was on the right at the top of the stairs, so as the sun streamed through the bay window, the open concept kitchen and dining space seemed long and high-ceiled. The bedroom was immediately on the left, but Jasira forced her attention away from the door, which was slightly ajar. Instead, she cast her eyes toward the lightly colored sajada that lay neatly folded on a shelf on the other side of the room. The east-west axis ran through the kitchen and the bay window, so either way, Jasira guessed the sun's guidance for when to pray was clear in the brightly lit area between the door and the shelf. "Settle your bags over there," Miriam said, as she strode into the kitchen. She'd indicated the space next to the door, so Jasira leaned her luggage against the wall and gingerly removed the gift from her backpack. The modest blue and white box contained her favorite sweets, which Jasira had made a point of buying during a frantic day of shopping on Bliss Street. Baklava was also common in Jordan, but Jasira had no idea what to expect when she turned around and presented the gift to Miriam. A heart leaped in her chest at the sight of the smile that exploded on her mentor's face. "Ya Allah shukran, Jasira," Miriam explained. "You really didn't have to." Holding a tray with both hands, she nodded toward the small table resting in the lee of the bay window. Sit, Miriam insisted. "This will be perfect with our tea." Overflowing with the satisfaction of being able to contribute to the moment, Jasira lowered herself into a chair and immediately opened the box. A little bit of Ras Beirut peeked into the room as she removed the blue and white cover and heard the crinkle of the gold cellophane. This was the first time Jasira had tea in a glass, and she watched with fascination as Miriam raised the silver kettle and poured the steaming amber liquid. The cups were small and narrow, with a simple metal filigree below the lip. Once full, Miriam handed the first to Jasira and said, "Sautain." "Yes," Jasira thought, holding the glass between her fingers. "To our health." The unfamiliar ritual felt meaningful and ignited a sudden desire in Jasira to visit the kingdom of Jordan. She had so many questions, but she held them back, given the sense of calm evinced in Miriam's slow, deliberate movements. The women settled into the embrace of companionable silence as they sipped their tea. A car passed, drawing Jasira's attention. When she turned toward the street, her eyes wandered to that fateful spot in the grass. "Midori," she mused, "where did you go?" "I want you to know," Miriam said, "you're always welcome here, day or night, no matter the time." When she turned back toward the table, Jasira spied a hint of concern in her mentor's face. "Is something wrong?" she asked. It was Miriam's turn to glance toward the window, but, judging by the faraway look in her eyes, the other woman was blind to the street. She was recalling bad memories, Jasira thought. Miriam said, "I don't mean to scare you, but," she pursed her lips, "this country, it necessitates a warning." "Do you mean the Muslim ban?" Jasira asked. "Yes and no." Miriam lowered her cup and rested her hands on the table. Americans are so proud of their ideals, but the reality, the way they really feel, is often very different. They both knew that Jasira's family was Christian, but they also knew the distinction would be lost on many of the people here. The entire world was painfully aware that Americans cared little about the events, cultures, and societal differences that lay beyond their borders. Jasira had been warned that she was unlikely to encounter anyone who could identify Lebanon on a map, but in a way, the lack of historical context was part of the country's appeal. Americans seemed determined to live like children, unable to remember what happened on the previous day, let alone 1,000 years ago. "But isn't it also the case," Jasira said, "that there are hypocrites everywhere?" Miriam stared down at the glass in her hand. "I suppose you're right," she shrugged. "Yes, I admit, there are people like that in my country, and I suspect in yours as well." She raised a cup to her lips and sipped, Perhaps it's the fact that we are new, but here it seems too easy to be fooled. She reached across the table and wrapped her hand over Jasira's. Just be careful. The person who is kind today may be the very person who is mean tomorrow. Jasira squeezed her hand back. Do not take anything at face value. Message sent. Miriam nodded. The women went back to enjoying a companionable silence until the baklava was gone and the tea kettle was empty. The 3 hours that followed proceeded according to a clearly laid out plan. The shuttle to the campus arrived shortly after they left the apartment and walked over to a nearby dorm. Being with Miriam was like being with a favorite aunt. Within the blink of an eye, Jasira had her student packet, had received a tour of the campus, and had purchased the things she needed from local shops. Many of the buildings reminded her of Harry Potter movies, and Weld Hall was certainly no exception. The exceedingly tall windows and dignified red brick exterior gave the dorm an ecclesiastical look. The top floor was literally a solarium, with rows and rows of long tables beneath a series of wooden candelabra. With Miriam's help, by 10 a.m., Jasira had completely moved in. She locked the door to her bedroom and appraised the common area, which, out of respect for her roommate, she'd left untouched. Miriam said, "What do you know about the other girl?" "Not much," Jasira replied with a sigh. She removed her phone and launched the Crimson Community app that she'd downloaded before leaving Beirut. "She is native to Manhattan," Jasira nodded as she scrolled down the screen. "A graduate of Dalton." "Oh," Miriam interrupted. "Is that a good school?" Jasira asked. In one motion, Miriam shrugged and flicked her hand in the air. A smile brightened Jasira's face despite the fact that she wanted to laugh. As she'd done all morning, her mentor reminded her of the women back home. Miriam said, "One of the best." Then she added in a doubtful tone, "At least that is what I am made to understand." Jasira furrowed her brow. She doesn't appear to have any hobbies or professional interests. Miriam wiped her finger over the furniture as if she were a headmistress inspecting the room. "A wealthy family," she said. "Prestigious school. Perhaps she doesn't need any." She paused at the bedroom that had been assigned to the person in question, glanced inside, and sniffed. Jasira was forced to store her things in the common area until her mentor had cleaned the room. Miriam asked, "What's her name?" Jasira raised the phone to her face, used her index finger to scroll to the top of the screen, and hummed the 2 words as if they were the opening of a lullaby. Her name, her eyes scanned the app for the relevant text, is Laura Nelson.